The champagne flute felt like lead in my hand as my sister-in-law's voice cut through the dining room. "Daniel got promoted. He's now regional director." She turned to me, her smile sharp as broken glass. "Still working that little desk job, honey?" Under the table, my husband Marcus squeezed my hand 3 times. Our secret signal. The envelope in my purse might as well have been on fire. In 48 hours, I'd signed the offer letter. In 72 hours, Daniel would walk into his first day as regional director and see me sitting in the CEO's chair. But I couldn't tell them. Not yet. Let me back up, because you need to understand how we got here. 6 months ago, I was exactly where Jennifer, that's my sister-in-law, thought I was. A little desk job, as she so lovingly put it. Senior financial analyst at Morrison & Klein, one of the top consulting firms in the Northeast. I'd been there 8 years, working my way up from an entry-level position, putting in 80-hour weeks, missing birthdays and holidays, building financial models that saved clients millions. My work spoke for itself, or so I thought. The thing about being a black woman in corporate America is that you learn to be twice as good for half the recognition. I'd learned that lesson early. Fresh out of Howard University with my MBA, walking into predominantly white spaces with my locks twisted into an elegant updo, watching people's faces as they realized I wasn't there to serve coffee. I was there to run the numbers that would make or break their quarterly projections. Before I continue, tell me where you're watching from. Have you ever been underestimated in a professional setting? Drop a comment below, because this story is about to get good. Marcus and I had been married for 4 years. We met at a friend's wedding, both of us in the wedding party, both of us exhausted from demanding careers. He was in tech, climbing his own corporate ladder. We understood each other's drive, the late nights, the missed dinners, the weight of being the only one in the room who looked like us. His brother Daniel was different. 3 years older than Marcus, Daniel had coasted through life on charm and connections. MBA from his father's alma mater, fast-tracked into management positions through family friends, the golden boy who could do no wrong. And then there was Jennifer. Jennifer had married into the family 2 years before I did, and from day one she'd made it clear that there was a hierarchy. She came from old money, the kind that whispered rather than shouted, the kind that showed up in country club memberships and summer homes in the Hamptons. When she looked at me, I could see the calculations running behind her eyes. My natural hair, my Howard degree instead of Harvard, my little desk job that didn't come with a fancy title she could brag about at her tennis club. The first time she commented on my hair was at a family barbecue 3 years ago. "Have you ever thought about straightening it?" she'd asked, touching my twist out without permission. "It might look more professional." Marcus had stepped in before I could respond, his voice tight with controlled anger. But Jennifer had just laughed it off, like she was doing me a favor. That was her specialty. Tiny cuts disguised as concern. Microaggressions wrapped in concern trolling. "You work such long hours, don't you worry about Marcus feeling neglected?" Or my personal favorite, from last Thanksgiving. "You're so articulate. I mean, your parents must be so proud of how far you've come." I'd learned to smile, to let it slide, to be the bigger person, as Marcus's mother would say, trying to keep peace in the family. But something inside me had been hardening, calcifying into something cold and patient. Then came the opportunity. It started 3 months ago. Morrison & Klein announced they were restructuring. Our CEO was retiring, and the board was looking for fresh leadership. Someone who understood the changing landscape, who could bring innovation and diversity to the executive suite. The headhunters were circling, but they were also looking internally. My boss, Catherine, called me into her office on a Tuesday morning. I remember the date exactly, June 15th. The sun was streaming through her corner office windows, catching on the crystal awards lining her shelves. She'd been with the company for 23 years, one of the few women who'd broken through the glass ceiling in the 80s and then spent decades pulling other women up behind her. "Close the door," she said, and my stomach dropped. Nothing good ever started with those words. But then she smiled. "I'm retiring, effective end of August, and I recommended you for CEO." The room tilted. "I'm sorry, what?" "The board is considering several candidates, internal and external. But I told them if they wanted someone who actually understands this business, who has the strategic vision to take us into the next decade, and who has the integrity this company was founded on. They needed to look at you. She leaned forward. You've been running this division for 2 years, even if your title doesn't reflect it. Everyone knows it. The clients know it. The junior analysts know it. It's time the board knew it too. Little did I know that conversation would set in motion a chain of events that would culminate in Jennifer's perfect smile cracking across the dinner table 3 months later. The interview process was grueling. 3 rounds with the board, presentations on 5-year strategic plans, financial projections, culture initiatives. I spent every spare moment preparing, running scenarios, anticipating questions. Marcus knew something big was happening, but I'd asked him not to tell his family. Not yet. Not until it was certain. You know how they are, I'd said one night, practicing my presentation in our living room while he sat on the couch with his laptop. If it doesn't work out, I'll never hear the end of it. Jennifer will have a field day. Marcus looked up from his screen, his dark eyes serious. She's jealous, you know. Of you. Of me? I'd laughed, bitter. She has everything. The house in Westchester, the summer place, the trust fund. She has things. You have substance. That's what kills her. He'd closed his laptop. But babe, when this comes through, and it will, watching her face is going to be the sweetest thing I've ever seen. Subscribe now, because what I discovered next changed everything about how this company actually worked. The second round of interviews revealed something I hadn't fully understood about Morrison & Klein's structure. We weren't just a consulting firm. We had subsidiaries, partner companies, strategic investments across multiple industries. One of those investments was in tech infrastructure, specifically in the company where Daniel had just been hired as regional director. I was in a conference room with the CFO going over the portfolio when I saw it. TechBridge Solutions, I read from the spreadsheet. We own 38%. Controlling interest, the CFO confirmed. They're one of our strategic investments. We've had board seats there for 6 years. Why? My heart was pounding, but I kept my voice steady. Just familiarizing myself with all our holdings. Who represents us on their board? Currently? No one. Catherine had the seat, but with her retirement, it's vacant. That'll be the new CEO's appointment. The pieces were clicking into place. TechBridge Solutions was where Daniel had just gotten his big promotion. The promotion Jennifer had been crowing about for weeks. The one she'd mentioned at every family gathering. The one she'd used as a bludgeon to diminish my own career. But what she didn't know, what Daniel didn't know, was that his new company answered to mine. I went home that night and said nothing. Not to Marcus, not to anyone. I just smiled and listened as he told me about his day, as we cooked dinner together, as we fell into our evening routine. But inside, something was shifting, settling, finding its center. The final interview was on a Friday. Just me, the full board, and 2 hours of the most intense questioning I'd ever experienced. They asked about diversity initiatives, about client retention, about navigating the post-pandemic landscape, about leadership philosophy. They asked about my background, my vision, my 5-year plan, and my 20-year plan. And then the board chair, an elegant woman in her 60s named Patricia, asked the question I'd been waiting for. You'd be the first Black woman CEO in this company's 40-year history. That comes with additional scrutiny, additional pressure, and let's be honest, additional obstacles. How do you handle that weight? I took a breath. Thought about every microaggression, every dismissive comment, every time someone had mistaken me for an assistant or asked if I was supposed to be in this meeting. Thought about Jennifer's sugary venom and the way she'd touched my hair without permission. I've been handling that weight my entire career, I said quietly. The difference is, now I'll have the authority to change the system that creates it. I don't want to be the first Black woman CEO here as a token or a trend. I want to be the first because I'm the best person for the job. And then I want to make sure I'm not the last. That means changing how we recruit, how we promote, how we mentor. That means building a company where excellence is recognized regardless of who it comes from. Patricia smiled. The meeting ended. I walked out into the late afternoon sun, my dark skin warm against the summer heat, and allowed myself exactly 30 seconds to fall apart in my car. Then I drove home, made dinner, and waited. The call came Saturday morning. I was in the kitchen, wearing old shorts and a Howard t-shirt, my hair in a pineapple, when my phone rang. "This is Patricia. Do you have a moment?" My hand started shaking. I caught my reflection in the window over the sink. Dark skin, natural hair wild and free, my brown fingers trembling as I gripped the phone. "Of course. The board met this morning. We'd like to offer you the position. CEO of Morrison & Klein, effective September 1st. Your salary will be—" The number she named made my knees weak. It was more than triple my current salary. It came with equity, with bonuses, with a benefits package that included things I'd never even thought to ask for. "I need to send you the formal offer letter, but I wanted to call personally. You impressed the hell out of us. We think you're going to do incredible things." I accepted. Of course I accepted. But I asked for the weekend to review the paperwork, to discuss with my husband, to let it sink in. Patricia agreed. The envelope would arrive by courier within 2 hours. When Marcus got home from his morning run, I was sitting at the kitchen table, the envelope in front of me, tears running down my face. "Babe, what happened? What's wrong?" I looked up at him, at this man who'd supported me through every late night, every setback, every moment of doubt. "Nothing's wrong. Everything's right. Marcus, they offered me CEO." He stared. Then he started laughing, the kind of deep, joyful laughter that shakes your whole body. He picked me up and spun me around the kitchen, both of us crying and laughing and barely believing it was real. "When do you start?" "September 1st. But Marcus, there's something else." I told him about TechBridge Solutions, about the board seat, about Daniel's new position that suddenly seemed a lot less impressive. His eyes went wide. Then that smile, the one I'd fallen in love with, the one that said he saw exactly where this was going. So when Daniel walks in on Monday, he walks into a company where I control the board seat, where his regional director position reports up a chain that ends with me. "Are you going to tell him?" "No." My voice was calm, steady. "I'm going to let him find out on his own." If you're enjoying this, hit that like button right now, because what happened at that family dinner was absolutely perfect. Sunday evening. Marcus's parents hosted like they did every few months. Their house in Scarsdale, the dining room table that sat 12, the good china that only came out for family gatherings. Jennifer had been texting all week about Daniel's promotion, about how proud everyone should be, about how he was really going places. I'd sent the signed offer letter back Saturday afternoon. It was done. Official. My start date was set. My transition plan was in motion, and the press release was scheduled for Monday morning at 9 a.m. But nobody knew. Not even Marcus's parents. I spent an hour getting ready. My locks twisted into an elegant updo, my favorite navy dress, professional, but not flashy, the one that made me look exactly like what I was. Successful, polished, in control. I caught Marcus watching me in the mirror, that knowing smile playing at his lips. "You look like a CEO," he said. "I am a CEO. They just don't know it yet." We arrived fashionably on time. Daniel and Jennifer were already there, Jennifer in head-to-toe designer everything, her blonde hair perfectly blown out, her smile ready and sharp. She hugged me with the kind of enthusiasm that felt like a performance for everyone watching. "So good to see you. You look so nice." "Is that dress new?" "Had it for a while," I said, smiling. "You look lovely." Dinner was the usual. Marcus's mother had outdone herself with the roast. His father was holding court with stories from his law practice, the conversation flowing around the table like a familiar script. I was quiet, answering when spoken to, letting the evening unfold. Then came dessert, and Jennifer's announcement. "Before we dig into this amazing pie," she said, tapping her wine glass with her fork, "I just have to share some exciting news. Daniel got promoted. He's now regional director at TechBridge Solutions." The table erupted in congratulations. Daniel, to his credit, looked slightly embarrassed by the fanfare, but he was smiling, accepting the praise. His parents beamed. Marcus squeezed my hand under the table, once, then twice. "Wait for it. It's a big step up," Daniel said. "More responsibility, bigger team, better salary. I'm really excited about it." "We're so proud," his mother said, her eyes actually tearing up. "Both our boys doing so well." That's when Jennifer turned to me. Her smile was sugar-coated venom, her eyes glittering with something that looked like satisfaction. "And what about you, honey? Still working that little desk job? What was it? Financial analyst? The table went quiet. Not the comfortable quiet of people enjoying pie. The awkward quiet of people who knew a line had been crossed, but weren't sure what to do about it. Marcus's grip on my hand tightened. 3 times. Our signal. I smiled. Calm. Composed. Actually, I've had some career developments too, but it's not official until Monday, so I'll keep it to myself for now. Oh, come on, Jennifer pressed, her tone playful, but her intent clear. Don't be modest. I'm sure whatever it is, it's lovely. Maybe a senior analyst position? That would be wonderful. The way she said wonderful made it sound like a consolation prize, like she was patting a child on the head for getting a participation trophy. My mother-in-law shifted uncomfortably. Jennifer, perhaps we should— No, it's fine, I said smoothly. The envelope in my purse felt like it was burning a hole through the leather. I'm happy to celebrate Daniel's success. Regional director is certainly impressive. Would you do what I did? Comment below before I tell you what happened next, because my response was calculated to perfection. I took a sip of wine, letting the moment breathe. TechBridge Solutions, you said? That's a great company, growing fast, good reputation in the industry. Daniel nodded, pleased. You've heard of them? Oh yes, we track a lot of companies in that space. Very impressive operation. Jennifer's smile faltered just slightly. She hadn't expected me to know the company. To her, I was just a financial analyst who shuffled papers and probably didn't understand the tech industry. Well, Daniel will be running the entire Northeast region, she said, recovering. Reporting directly to the VP of Operations. It's a huge opportunity. It really is, I agreed. The leadership structure there is quite interesting. Strong board oversight, strategic investment backing, very well positioned for growth. I could see the confusion in Jennifer's eyes. This wasn't how this was supposed to go. I was supposed to be intimidated, diminished, put in my place. Instead, I was discussing corporate structure like I knew exactly what I was talking about. Because I did. Marcus was trying not to laugh. I could feel his shoulders shaking slightly next to me. His father was watching me with new interest, his lawyer instincts sensing something was happening beneath the surface. Anyway, Jennifer said, her voice tighter now, I just think it's important to celebrate family success. We can't all be regional directors, of course. Everyone contributes in their own way. The condescension was breathtaking. The implication crystal clear. Some contributions mattered more than others. Some careers were worthy of celebration. Others were just little desk jobs. I set down my wine glass, looked at Jennifer with the kind of calm I'd cultivated through years of being underestimated, of being the only one in the room, of being doubted and dismissed and having to prove myself over and over. You're absolutely right, I said softly. Everyone contributes in their own way, and sometimes those contributions surprise you. Monday morning couldn't come fast enough. Marcus and I left the dinner early, claiming I had work to prepare for the next day. Which was true, just not in the way anyone thought. In the car, he finally let loose the laughter he'd been holding in. Babe. The way her face fell when you started talking about TechBridge's corporate structure. She thought I was just some analyst who wouldn't know, I said, my own laughter bubbling up. She has no idea. Should we have told them? I thought about it. The satisfaction of seeing their faces, of watching Jennifer's carefully constructed superiority crumble in real time. But no, this was better. This was perfect. Monday, I said. Let them find out Monday. I barely slept Sunday night. My mind was racing through everything that would happen in the next 48 hours. The press release would go out at 9 a.m. Morrison & Klein would announce their new CEO. The industry publications would pick it up within hours. By lunch, it would be all over LinkedIn, all over the business news sites. And Daniel would be in his first day at TechBridge Solutions, walking into what he thought was his big break, his chance to prove himself. He'd meet with his team, get oriented to his new role, probably spend the day in meetings and orientations. And then he'd see the news. Monday morning, I dressed with extra care. My favorite power suit, charcoal gray, perfectly tailored. My locks in a sophisticated updo. Minimal jewelry, just my wedding ring, and the small diamond studs Marcus had given me for our anniversary. I caught my reflection in the full-length mirror and barely recognized myself. Not because I looked different, but because I finally looked like what I'd always been: powerful, competent, worthy. If you're a woman who's ever had to prove yourself in spaces that weren't built for you, hit that like button right now. The press release went out at exactly 9 a.m. My phone started buzzing immediately. Texts from colleagues, from former professors, from friends who'd seen the news. Congratulations poured in. Morrison and Klein's social media exploded with the announcement. The response was overwhelming, positive, excited. At 9:30, my new assistant, because yes, I had an assistant now, brought me the morning's media coverage. Forbes had already picked it up. Morrison and Klein, names first Black woman CEO in company history. Business Insider's headline, Rising Star Takes Helm at Premier Consulting Firm. LinkedIn was on fire with shares and comments. And then, at 10:15, my personal phone rang. Marcus. "You need to see this," he said, and I could hear the barely controlled laughter in his voice. "Check the family group chat." I pulled up the chat on my computer, and there it was. Daniel had sent a message at 10:03 a.m. "Hey family, weird question. Did anyone know about this?" With a link to the Forbes article. Then, at 10:07, "Marcus, is this your wife?" At 10:09, from Marcus's mother. "Oh my goodness, why didn't she say anything?" At 10:11, from Marcus's father. "This is incredible. We had a CEO at our dinner table last night and had no idea." And then, at 10:14, silence from Jennifer. I could picture it. Daniel in his new office, probably scrolling through news during a break in orientation, seeing the announcement. The moment of confusion. The double take. The slow realization that the woman his wife had mocked for having a little desk job was now the CEO of a major consulting firm. The CEO of a firm that held controlling interest in his company. The CEO who technically had board oversight of his entire operation. My phone rang again. Marcus's mother this time. I let it go to voicemail. Then Marcus's father. Then text after text in the family chat, everyone asking why I hadn't said anything, how long I'd known, when did this happen? But still nothing from Jennifer. At 11 a.m., I had my first official meeting as CEO. The senior leadership team, all assembled in the main conference room. Catherine was there too, transitioning me in, introducing me as the new head of the company. These were people I'd worked with for years, but the dynamic had shifted. I wasn't their peer anymore. I was their boss. The meeting went smoothly. We discussed the transition timeline, immediate priorities, the strategic initiatives I wanted to launch. Catherine beamed at me the entire time, proud as a mother watching her daughter graduate. Afterward, she pulled me aside. "You're going to be brilliant at this. You know that, right?" "I'm terrified," I admitted. "Good. The day you stop being terrified is the day you stop growing." She squeezed my shoulder. "And speaking of growth, you need to appoint someone to the TechBridge board seat. It's been vacant since I announced my retirement." "I know. I've been thinking about it. There's a board meeting there on Thursday. New regional directors are presenting their quarterly plans. Might be good to attend, start getting a sense of the operation." Thursday. 3 days away. 3 days for Daniel to settle into his new role, to feel comfortable, to start making plans. 3 days before he'd walk into that board meeting and see me sitting at the head of the table. My favorite moment was watching everything unfold over the next 72 hours. What was yours? Comment below. The next 3 days were a blur of meetings, press interviews, transition planning, and ignored phone calls from my in-laws. I'd sent a polite message to the family chat. Sorry for the secrecy. I wanted to be sure everything was finalized before saying anything. Happy to discuss at the next family gathering. And then I'd muted the conversation. Marcus told me Jennifer had called him twice. He hadn't answered. "Let her stew," he said. "Let them all stew." Tuesday afternoon, my new executive assistant, Keisha, a sharp young woman with impeccable organizational skills, knocked on my office door. "You have the TechBridge board meeting on Thursday at 2 p.m. I've sent you the background materials. Their regional directors are presenting quarterly plans." "Perfect. I'll need to review the company structure tonight. And Keisha, let's not announce that I'll be attending. Just add me to the board meeting roster without fanfare." She smiled, understanding immediately. "Of course. Low profile." Wednesday, I finally called Marcus's mother back. The conversation was warm, congratulatory, slightly bewildered. "Sweetheart, we're so proud of you. But why didn't you tell us at dinner? We were all there. It would have been the perfect time." "The offer was only finalized Saturday," I said, which was technically true. "And I wanted to wait until it was public. You know how these things are. You don't count your chickens until everything's signed." Jennifer feels terrible about what she said. I doubted that very much, but I kept my voice pleasant. "It's fine. She didn't know. Will you be at dinner this Sunday? I think we should celebrate properly. I'll check my schedule and let you know." Thursday morning, I dressed for war. My most expensive suit, midnight blue, tailored to perfection. My locks styled in an intricate updo that had taken my stylist an hour. Pearl earrings that had belonged to my grandmother. I looked like money, like power, like someone you didn't mess with. The TechBridge Solutions headquarters was in Stamford, about 40 minutes from our office. I drove myself, using the time to review the board materials one more time. Daniel's presentation was third on the agenda. Northeast Regional Strategy and Q3 Projections. I arrived 15 minutes early. The receptionist didn't recognize me. Why would she? I was just another board member attending a meeting. "Name, please?" "Morrison. I'm here for the 2 p.m. board meeting." She checked her list, her eyes widening slightly. "Oh, yes, Ms. Morrison. They're in conference room A, 5th floor. Can I get you anything? Coffee? Water?" "I'm fine, thank you." The 5th floor was all glass and chrome, modern and sleek. Conference room A had a massive table, leather chairs, and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Long Island Sound. 3 people were already there, board members I recognized from my research. They introduced themselves, welcomed me, and we made small talk about the company's performance. At 1:55, the CFO arrived, then the COO. At 1:58, the CEO of TechBridge, a man named Robert Chen, who I'd spoken with twice during my own transition. "Good to see you again," he said, shaking my hand. "Congratulations on your appointment. We're excited to have Morrison & Klein's continued partnership." "Thank you. I'm looking forward to learning more about the operation." At 2 p.m. exactly, Robert called the meeting to order. "Welcome, everyone. We have a full agenda today, including presentations from our 3 new regional directors. Before we begin, I want to acknowledge a change in our board composition. Catherine Brennan has retired from Morrison & Klein, and we're pleased to welcome her successor to our board. Please join me in welcoming the new CEO of Morrison & Klein and our newest board member." He gestured to me. Every head at the table turned, and that's when the conference room door opened. Daniel walked in, followed by 2 other people I assumed were the other regional directors. He was looking down at his tablet, pulling up his presentation, not paying attention to who was sitting at the board table, until he looked up. Our eyes met across the conference room. I watched the color drain from his face, watched his steps falter, watched his mouth open slightly in shock, no sound coming out. I smiled, calm, composed, professional. "Good afternoon, Daniel. I look forward to your presentation." If you've ever seen someone's entire world shift in real time, you know the expression that crossed Daniel's face. It was like watching a building collapse in slow motion. The confidence, the swagger, the certainty that he'd climbed to some impressive height, all of it crumbling as he realized who I was, what I was, his boss's boss's boss. The other regional directors took their seats, oblivious to Daniel's crisis. Robert continued the meeting, moving through the standard board business: approvals, financial reports, strategic updates. I participated, asking questions, providing input, demonstrating exactly the kind of strategic thinking that had landed me in this room. And Daniel sat there, his presentation queued up on his tablet, his face getting paler by the minute. The first regional director presented. Solid performance, good growth projections, clear strategy. I asked 2 pointed questions about client retention and market penetration. The director answered well. I nodded, satisfied. The second director presented. Weaker performance, but honest about the challenges and clear about remediation plans. I appreciated the candor, said so, and suggested some resources from Morrison & Klein's consulting practice that might help. Then it was Daniel's time. He stood, and I could see his hands shaking slightly as he pulled up his slides. His voice, when he spoke, was less steady than I'm sure he'd practiced. "Good afternoon. I'm Daniel Harrison, the new Regional Director for the Northeast Territory. I'd like to present our quarterly projections and strategic initiatives for the next fiscal year. His presentation was fine. Not great, not terrible. Standard corporate strategy, reasonable projections, nothing innovative, but nothing disastrous. He clicked through his slides, his voice gaining confidence as he hit his rhythm, almost forgetting I was there. Until the questions began. "Daniel," I said, my voice pleasant and professional, "your client acquisition targets seem conservative given the market opportunity in the Northeast. Can you walk me through your reasoning?" He blinked, swallowed. "Well, we wanted to be realistic about what we could achieve in the first 2 quarters. Realistic is good. But Morrison & Klein's research suggests the market opportunity in your territory is significantly larger than you're projecting here. Are you accounting for the industry trends we've identified?" I wasn't being cruel. These were legitimate business questions, the kind any board member would ask. But watching Daniel realize that he had to answer to me, had to defend his strategy to me, had to prove himself to the woman his wife had mocked for having a little desk job, that was its own kind of poetry. I'll need to review that research," he stammered. "I'll have my team send it over. This is exactly the kind of strategic partnership between our companies that can drive real growth." I smiled. That's the benefit of Morrison & Klein's investment position. We can provide resources and insights that help all our portfolio companies succeed. Robert nodded approvingly. "Excellent point. Daniel, let's schedule a follow-up meeting to discuss integration of M&K's market research into your planning." The meeting continued. Daniel finished his presentation, answered a few more questions from other board members, and sat down, looking like he'd aged 5 years. After the meeting adjourned, Robert pulled me aside. "That was impressive. Catherine spoke highly of you, but seeing you in action, you're going to be a valuable addition to this board. Thank you. I'm excited about the partnership." Daniel was packing up his materials, moving slowly, clearly hoping to avoid direct interaction. But I walked over, my heels clicking on the marble floor, my smile professional and warm. "Daniel, good presentation. I think with some additional market research and perhaps some strategic consulting support, your territory could really outperform these projections." He looked at me, and I could see him trying to figure out what to say, how to act. We'd never been close, just in-laws who saw each other at family gatherings, who made polite conversation and kept our distance. But now the dynamic had shifted so completely that he was visibly struggling to adapt. "Thank you," he managed. I didn't know you'd be on the board." "The appointment was finalized this week. I'm still getting oriented to all of Morrison & Klein's portfolio companies." I tilted my head slightly. "It's a small world, isn't it? Family connections in unexpected places." I let that hang in the air for a moment. Let him think about Sunday dinner, about Jennifer's smug superiority, about little desk jobs and condescending smiles. Then I softened my expression. "But that actually works in your favor. I have a vested interest in seeing you succeed, both as a board member and as family. So please, use me as a resource. My door is always open." I meant it. Despite everything, despite Jennifer's cruelty and the years of microaggressions, Daniel himself had never been the problem. He'd been oblivious, sure, privileged and unaware of his advantages, but not malicious. "I appreciate that," he said quietly. "And congratulations on the CEO position. That's really incredible." "Thank you." I paused, then decided to throw him a bone. "For what it's worth, your presentation was solid. You have good instincts. You just need to think bigger. Don't let conservatism hold you back from real opportunity." I left him standing there, probably trying to figure out how to explain all this to Jennifer. That evening, Marcus met me for dinner at our favorite restaurant. We'd barely sat down when he started laughing. "I got 3 calls from Daniel today. 3. He didn't know what to say. Finally just texted, asking if we could talk this weekend." "What did you tell him?" "That you're his boss now, so maybe he should bring his A game to family dinners." Marcus was grinning. "This is the greatest thing that's ever happened. Be nice. He didn't do anything wrong." "No, but Jennifer did. And watching her try to process this, babe, she called my mom crying." I set down my wine glass. "Crying? Apparently, she's mortified." It keeps saying she didn't know. She would never have said those things if she'd known. Mom told her that maybe she shouldn't say those things regardless of someone's job title, and Jennifer did not take that well. I should have felt satisfaction, vindication. But instead, I just felt tired. Tired of the games, the comparisons, the constant need to prove myself worthy of basic respect. I don't want her to be mortified, I said quietly. I just want her to understand that everyone's career has value, that you don't need a fancy title to deserve respect. Marcus reached across the table and took my hand. You're a better person than me. I want her to stew in it. Give it time. You'll get there. Sunday dinner was unavoidable. Marcus's mother called personally, insisting we needed to celebrate properly, that the family wanted to honor my achievement. I agreed, because refusing would have been worse than attending. Jennifer had sent me a text Friday morning. I owe you an apology. Can we talk before Sunday? I'd responded simply, Sunday is fine. Let's just enjoy the family dinner. We arrived at the Scarsdale house at 6 p.m. The scene was eerily similar to the previous Sunday. Same dining room, same table setting, same faces. But everything was different. Jennifer was subdued. No designer showboating, no performance energy. She wore a simple dress, her hair in a low ponytail, her makeup minimal. When we walked in, she immediately stood up and came over. Can we talk? Just for a minute? I nodded, and we stepped into the hallway while Marcus joined his family in the living room. Jennifer's eyes were red. She'd been crying, or was about to start. I don't even know where to begin. What I said last week was hurtful. I finished for her. Yes, I didn't know. That's the problem, Jennifer. You didn't know because you never asked. You assumed. You assumed my job was less important than Daniel's because his title sounded fancier. You assumed my career didn't matter because I didn't brag about it at every family gathering. I kept my voice calm, factual. And worse, you've been doing this for years. The comments about my hair, about my background, about whether I'm neglecting Marcus. Little cuts disguised as concern. She was crying now, mascara running despite the minimal makeup. I know, and I'm so sorry. I was jealous. That surprised me. Jealous? You have substance, real accomplishment. I married into money, into a good family, but I haven't actually done anything. And you worked your way up, earned everything you have. You and Marcus have this partnership, this respect for each other. Daniel and I. She trailed off. We're not like that. I felt something soften in my chest. This was the most honest Jennifer had ever been with me. I can't excuse what I said, she continued, or what I've been saying for years. You deserved better. You deserve better. And I'm truly sorry. I looked at her, this woman who'd made me feel small and dismissed, who'd touched my hair without permission and questioned my professionalism. And I saw someone trapped in her own insecurities, lashing out at the women who threatened the only identity she'd built for herself. I appreciate the apology, I said carefully. But Jennifer, this can't happen again. I don't care about job titles or who makes more money or who has the bigger house. I care about respect, basic human respect. Can you give me that? Yes. God, yes, I promise. She wiped at her eyes. And I want to do better. Not just with you, but in general. Watching you this week, seeing what you've accomplished, it made me realize I need to figure out who I am beyond Daniel's wife. Then do that. Find your own thing. Build your own identity. And when you do, I'll be the first one celebrating you, because that's what family should do. She hugged me then, and I let her. It wasn't forgiveness, not entirely, but it was a start. Dinner was a celebration, as promised. Marcus's mother had outdone herself. Roast beef, all the sides, and a cake that said, "Congratulations, CEO," in elegant script. Daniel was quiet, but pleasant, asking me thoughtful questions about my transition, about my plans for the company. He'd clearly spent the week processing his new reality. Marcus's father raised his glass for a toast. To my daughter-in-law, who has shown us all what quiet excellence looks like. We're proud to have you in this family. I caught Jennifer's eye across the table. She raised her glass, her smile small but genuine. The conversation flowed easier than it had in years. Without the competition, without the need to prove superiority, we were just family sharing a meal. Marcus kept his hand on my knee under the table, occasionally squeezing 3 times, our signal. But this time, it meant something different. Pride, joy, celebration. After dinner, while the others were having coffee in the living room, Daniel pulled me aside. "I wanted to thank you. For Thursday. You could have embarrassed me in front of the whole board, and you didn't. That's not how I lead," I said simply. "I want you to succeed, Daniel. Truly." Jennifer told me what she said last week. All of it. I'm ashamed I didn't shut it down. He ran a hand through his hair. "I've been coasting my whole life, and I think I knew it, but didn't want to admit it. Watching you, how hard you work, how much you've earned, it's been humbling. So work harder. Earn your position. You have the opportunity and the resources. Make it count." He nodded slowly. "I'm going to take you up on that offer. Your door being open. I could use a mentor who'll be honest with me. Anytime. Comment if you've ever been excluded from family celebrations because they didn't take your success seriously, because this next part is important." The following weeks were a whirlwind. Leading Morrison & Klein was everything I'd hoped, and more challenging than I'd imagined. There were late nights and difficult decisions, pushback from old guard partners who didn't like change, and moments where imposter syndrome hit so hard I could barely breathe. But there were victories too. We landed 3 major new clients in my first month. I promoted 2 junior analysts, both women of color, to senior positions and started a formal mentorship program for diverse talent. I sat on panels, gave interviews, became a visible face for what leadership could look like. At TechBridge, Daniel was rising to the challenge. He'd taken my advice seriously, brought in Morrison & Klein's consulting team to revamp his strategy, and his Q4 projections were already outperforming his initial targets. In our monthly board meetings, I watched him grow more confident, more strategic, more willing to think big. Jennifer had enrolled in a master's program, nonprofit management. She'd started volunteering with a women's literacy organization and discovered a passion for education advocacy. At family dinners, she talked about her coursework with genuine excitement, no longer needing to live vicariously through Daniel's career. The change in our relationship was gradual but real. She asked about my hair routine once, not as criticism, but genuine curiosity about how to support her daughter's natural texture. She recommended books written by Black authors she was reading for class. She caught herself mid-microaggression once at Thanksgiving and immediately apologized, then asked me to call her out if she did it again. It wasn't perfect. Old habits die hard. But it was progress. 3 months into my tenure as CEO, Forbes ran a feature profile. The Quiet Revolutionary, How Morrison & Klein's New CEO is Reshaping Corporate Consulting. The article detailed my initiatives, my background, my vision for the industry. There was a photo of me in my office, my locks down and natural, wearing my favorite navy suit, looking powerful and at peace. Marcus framed it and hung it in our home office. "Remember when Jennifer called it your little desk job?" he said, standing back to admire the frame. "I prefer to remember her apology," I said, "and her growth. You're more generous than I am." "No, I'm just tired of carrying anger. It's exhausting." He pulled me close, kissing the top of my head. "I'm so proud of you. Not just for the CEO thing, but for how you've handled all of it. The grace, the wisdom, the refusal to become bitter. I had moments," I admitted. "That drive home after she mocked me? I wanted to text her the offer letter right then. Rub her face in it. But you didn't. But I didn't, because that wouldn't have changed anything. She needed to see it herself, to confront her own assumptions, and honestly, I needed to prove to myself that my success wasn't about her. It was about me." 6 months in, I was invited to speak at Howard University's business school commencement. Standing at that podium, looking out at a sea of Black faces about to enter the professional world, I thought about everything that had brought me here. The microaggressions and the late nights, the moments of doubt and the hard-won victories, the family dinners where I bit my tongue, and the board meetings where I found my voice. "You're going to walk into rooms where you're the only one who looks like you," I told them, "where people will underestimate you, dismiss you, question whether you belong. And you're going to have 2 choices. You can shrink to fit their limited expectations, or you can expand so dramatically that they have to rebuild the room around you." The applause was thunderous. Afterward, dozens of students lined up to talk to me, to shake my hand, to ask advice. I stayed for hours, answering every question, giving every piece of guidance I could. One young woman, her locks styled in an intricate pattern, waited until the very end. "How do you handle the loneliness? Being the only one?" I thought about it. "You build your own table. You mentor people who look like you, who will come after you. You change the system so the next generation doesn't have to be lonely. And you remember that being first isn't about you. It's about opening the door for everyone behind you." She hugged me, tears in her eyes. "Thank you for being visible, for showing us it's possible." That night, driving back to Connecticut, I called my mother, told her about the speech, about the students, about how surreal it felt to be someone's inspiration. "Baby, I'm so proud of you," she said, and I could hear her crying. "Your grandmother would be too. You know she cleaned houses so I could go to college? And I worked 2 jobs so you could focus on your education? And now look at you, CEO, speaking at Howard, breaking barriers." "I carry you both with me," I said, "every day. I know you do. We see it. In your grace, in your strength, in how you move through the world. You're not just successful, baby. You're changing things." At the 1-year mark, Morrison and Klein's board threw a celebration dinner. Patricia stood to give remarks, her voice warm with affection. When we appointed our first woman CEO, we knew we were taking a risk. Not because of her qualifications, those were impeccable, but because change is always risky. And this year has brought extraordinary change. She looked at me. Revenue up 18%. Client satisfaction at record highs. Employee retention improved across all demographics, but particularly among women and people of color. Industry recognition and awards. But more than the numbers, you've changed the culture here, made us better, made us think bigger. And on behalf of this board, I want to say thank you. The applause was genuine, enthusiastic. Catherine, sitting next to me, squeezed my hand. "Told you," she whispered. Brilliant. That Sunday, family dinner was at our house. Marcus and I had finally bought our dream home. Nothing ostentatious, but ours. Earned through hard work and careful planning. Modern kitchen, home office, a backyard where we could host gatherings. If you're a woman who stayed calm on the outside while planning your victory on the inside, the next story I have will hit different. Click the video on screen now. You won't regret it. I was in the kitchen, pulling the roast from the oven, when Jennifer came in with a bottle of wine. "Need help?" "Sure. Can you open that?" We worked in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Jennifer said, "I never thanked you properly. For giving me grace. For not destroying me when you could have." I set down the carving knife and looked at her. "Jennifer, I never wanted to destroy you. I just wanted respect." "I know, and I'm grateful you saw the difference." She poured wine into 2 glasses, handed me one. "I'm graduating in May, getting my master's, and I've been offered a position at the literacy nonprofit, director of programs." "Jennifer, that's incredible. It's not CEO of a major consulting firm," she said with a self-deprecating smile. "But it's mine. I earned it, and I'm proud of it. As you should be. I'm proud of you too." We clinked glasses, and in that moment I realized something had fundamentally shifted. We'd never be best friends. Too much history, 2 different personalities. But we could be family. Real family. Built on respect instead of competition. Dinner was loud and warm, full of laughter and stories. Daniel talked about his newest initiative at TechBridge, already implementing strategies that would likely earn him a VP position within the year. Marcus's parents asked about my upcoming testimony before Congress on diversity in corporate leadership. Marcus told embarrassing stories about my terrible cooking when we first got married, and I retaliated with equally embarrassing stories about his early attempts at romantic gestures. It was normal, beautifully, wonderfully normal. Later, after everyone had left and Marcus was loading the dishwasher, I stood in our backyard looking up at the stars. My phone buzzed with an email. A young analyst from Morrison and Klein asking if I had time to mentor her. She'd seen my commencement speech online and wanted guidance on navigating corporate culture as a Black woman. I smiled and typed back, "Absolutely. Let's set up a time to talk." Marcus came outside, wrapping his arms around me from behind. "What are you thinking about?" How far we've come. How much has changed in just 1 year. Any regrets? I thought about it. About the envelope in my purse that Sunday dinner. About the board meeting where Daniel's face went pale. About Jennifer's tears and apologies and growth. About every moment of being underestimated, dismissed, and doubted that had brought me to this place of power and purpose. None, I said finally. Not a single one. Not even letting them sweat for a few days before revealing the CEO thing? I laughed. Especially not that. That was perfect timing. He kissed my temple. You know what I love most about this whole story? What? You didn't change who you were to become CEO. You became CEO by being exactly who you've always been. Brilliant, strategic, graceful, and unwilling to accept anything less than what you deserve. I turned in his arms to face him. I had good support. You had good instincts. I just got to watch you trust them. We stood there in our backyard, in our home, in our life that we'd built through hard work and partnership, and refusing to accept other people's limitations. The girl who'd walked into corporate America with her Howard degree and her natural hair and her determination to prove herself worthy, she was still here. But she didn't need to prove anything anymore. The proof was in the title on her door, the changes in her company, the young women she mentored, the family dinners where respect flowed freely, the board meetings where her voice carried weight, the industry panels where she spoke truth about systemic barriers and real solutions. My phone buzzed again. An email from Daniel. Thanks for the strategy feedback today. Also, wanted you to know, Jennifer and I are hosting Thanksgiving this year. We'd love for you and Marcus to come. No pressure, no performance, just family. I showed Marcus the message. He read it and smiled. Are you going to go? Yeah, I said. I think I am. Because that was the thing about revenge, about justice, about standing up for yourself and refusing to accept disrespect. The goal was never to destroy. It was to transform, to create space for something better to grow. Jennifer had called my career a little desk job in a moment of cruelty born from her own insecurities. And yes, walking into that board meeting and watching realization dawn across Daniel's face had been satisfying. Watching Jennifer grapple with her own assumptions and prejudices had been necessary. But the real victory wasn't in their discomfort. It was in the change that followed. Jennifer finding her own purpose. Daniel learning to work harder and think bigger. Family dinners becoming spaces of genuine celebration instead of subtle competition. My own confidence growing not from titles or validation, but from knowing my worth regardless of who recognized it. The real victory was standing in my backyard, in my home, with my husband, having built a life that didn't need anyone else's approval. 3 years later, I was still CEO of Morrison & Klein. We'd expanded into 2 new markets, our diversity numbers were industry-leading, and we'd been named one of the best places to work 3 years running. I sat on 4 boards now, mentored dozens of young professionals, and spoke regularly about the intersection of leadership, diversity, and corporate responsibility. Daniel was VP of Operations at TechBridge, thriving in a role he genuinely earned through hard work and strategic thinking. Jennifer had her master's degree and was making real impact in education advocacy, recently featured in a profile about nonprofit leadership. At family gatherings, we laughed about that dinner 3 years ago. It had become family lore, the time Jennifer unknowingly mocked the CEO, the time Daniel discovered his new boss was his sister-in-law, the time I sat on a secret that would reshape all our dynamics. But it was told with affection now, with understanding of how much we'd all grown, how much we'd all learned about respect and assumption and the danger of dismissing anyone's worth based on surface-level judgments. My favorite moment was still that board meeting. Watching Daniel's face as he realized who I was. The slow-motion collapse of his certainty, the recalibration of his entire understanding of our family hierarchy. It was perfect, poetic, precisely calibrated for maximum impact. But my proudest moment was Jennifer's graduation. Sitting in the audience as she walked across that stage to receive her master's degree, watching her face glow with genuine accomplishment, knowing she'd found something that was hers and hers alone. That transformation, from someone who derived worth from putting others down to someone building her own meaningful path, that was the real victory. Because the best revenge isn't just proving someone wrong. It's creating enough space and grace for them to prove themselves wrong, to grow past their own limitations, to become better than they were. Last month, I gave another commencement speech, this time at a predominantly white institution that was trying to diversify its business school. Standing at that podium, looking out at the sea of faces, Black, white, Asian, Latinx, all gathered to celebrate achievement, I told them about that dinner, about Jennifer's condescension and my secret envelope, about being underestimated and finding power in patience, about revenge that transforms rather than destroys. Someone once called my career a little desk job, I said. And technically, she was right. I did sit at a desk. But that desk happened to be where I built financial models that drove millions in revenue, where I developed strategies that changed entire companies, where I proved myself over and over until there was no question I deserved a seat at every table. I paused, letting that sink in. The lesson isn't about revenge or proving people wrong. It's about knowing your worth independent of anyone else's recognition. It's about doing the work so well that eventually the world has no choice but to acknowledge it. And when that acknowledgement comes, when you're finally sitting in the CEO chair or the boardroom or wherever your excellence takes you, use that power to lift others up, to change the systems that tried to keep you small, to make sure the next generation doesn't have to fight as hard for basic respect. The applause was thunderous. But afterward, a young white woman approached me, her eyes uncertain. "Can I ask you something? About your sister-in-law. How did you forgive her?" I considered the question carefully. I didn't forgive her immediately. I let her sit with the consequences of her assumptions. I let the discomfort do its work. But when she showed genuine remorse and genuine change, not just embarrassment about being wrong, but real understanding of why her behavior was harmful, I gave her space to grow. Because holding on to anger would have poisoned me, not her. But what if she hadn't changed? Then I would have maintained boundaries. You can forgive without reconciling. You can release your own anger without giving someone continued access to hurt you. The key is knowing the difference between someone who's genuinely growing and someone who just wants you to absolve them without doing the work. She nodded slowly, processing. The hardest part about being first, I continued, is that you're navigating without a roadmap. People will project their biases onto you, will underestimate you, will test you in ways they'd never test someone else. And you have to decide, every single day, how much energy to spend on education versus elevation. Sometimes you teach. Sometimes you just rise above and let your success speak for itself. Now, sitting in my office, the CEO office with floor-to-ceiling windows and my grandmother's pearls in a frame on the wall, I think about that journey. From little desk job to this chair, from biting my tongue at family dinners to speaking before Congress. From being the only Black woman in most rooms to actively changing who gets invited to those rooms. The envelope in my purse that Sunday night wasn't just a job offer. It was validation of every late night, every microaggression endured, every moment I had to be twice as good for half the recognition. It was proof that quiet excellence, strategic patience, and unwavering belief in your own worth could reshape entire power dynamics. And the look on Daniel's face in that board meeting? That wasn't just satisfaction. It was the moment the world realigned to match reality. The moment perception caught up with truth. The moment I stopped being underestimated and started being unavoidable. My assistant knocks on my door. "You have the Diversity Initiative review in 15 minutes. And your mother called. She saw you quoted in the Wall Street Journal again." I smile, gathering my materials. Another meeting, another opportunity to shape policy, another chance to use this platform for something bigger than myself. My phone buzzes. A text from Jennifer. "Saw your WSJ quote. Corporate diversity isn't charity, it's capitalism at its smartest." Brilliant. "Lunch this week?" I text back. "Thursday work?" "Perfect. My treat. I want to pick your brain about fundraising strategies." 3 years ago, that exchange would have been unimaginable. Now it's normal. Family supporting family, each of us in our own lanes, celebrating rather than competing. Marcus was right that night in the car after the first dinner. The best part of this story isn't the revenge. It's everything that came after. The relationships rebuilt on respect instead of hierarchy. The family dinners where everyone's accomplishments matter equally. The mentorship and growth and transformation. But I won't lie. That moment when Daniel walked into the board meeting and saw me sitting there, when his face went pale and his certainty crumbled, and he had to recalibrate everything he thought he knew about power and family and who held the cards, that was pretty damn sweet too. Because sometimes, just sometimes, the quiet girl at the desk job who never bragged about her work or fought for recognition or demanded respect, sometimes she's been building an empire in silence. And when the world finally catches up to what she's always known about herself, when the title matches the talent and the position reflects the power, that's not revenge. That's just justice, served cold and precise and absolutely perfect. I walk into my meeting, my locks swept up in a crown braid, my navy suit perfectly tailored, my voice steady and sure. The room stands as I enter, not because they have to, but because they want to, because I've earned it. And somewhere, in an office in Stamford, Daniel is probably in a meeting of his own, presenting strategies informed by my guidance, building a career he's genuinely earning. And somewhere in the city, Jennifer is probably working on her nonprofit initiative, finding purpose in work that matters. And tonight, at home, Marcus will ask about my day, and I'll tell him about the new mentee I'm taking on, the board decision I influenced, the small way I moved the needle toward a more equitable corporate world. This is what winning looks like. Not destruction, but transformation. Not revenge, but revolution. Not proving you deserve the seat, but changing who gets invited to the table. And it all started with a little desk job and an envelope that burned in my purse while my sister-in-law smiled her condescending smile. Turns out, she was right to worry. Just not for the reasons she thought. The desk job was never little. I was just waiting for everyone else to catch up.